Hi, everyone. This is Ellen from the Astrology Journal. I had an experience in the last week or so that gave me some insight into Pluto in Capricorn, the last degrees of Capricorn, and then also Saturn in the early degrees of Pisces. So I wanted to share that and talk a little bit about that. Just before I talk about that experience, we can look at, if we look at Pluto in Capricorn, it's at 28 degrees Capricorn. This is the last 2 degrees of Capricorn. And those last degrees of any sign, we can say are balsamic in energy, balsamic phase energy, we could say. And Saturn, and then that balsamic energy is itself Piscean in nature. When we look at I don't have it here on the screen, but when we look at the phases, when we wrap the phases, spaces around the natural wheel, we find that the balsamic phase encompasses Pisces. And so there's this Piscean nature to the balsamic phase. And so we have Pluto in Capricorn in the final degrees of Capricorn, and that's kind of in this Piscean energy, this balsamic energy. And then we have Saturn in Pisces, which itself is kind of balsamic in nature. So while these aren't technically in mutual reception, there is a kind of a energetic mutual reception going on here. So for those of you who don't know, a mutual reception, if say we had Pluto in Capricorn and then say we had Saturn in Scorpio, well, Saturn rules Capricorn and Pluto rules Scorpio. So in that situation, we would have Pluto in Saturn's sign and we would have Saturn in Pluto's sign. And so that's a mutual reception. We don't have that with Pluto in Capricorn and Saturn in Pisces, but because of that balsamic Piscean energy, there is, in my view, a certain kind of mutual reception kind of energy. And that mutual reception is they're working together. It just means that they're working together in a way, they're working kind of along the same lines, almost, you could say. One of the ways that we could read Saturn in Pisces is that the boundaries, Saturn and Capricorn are about boundaries. Boundaries are being dissolved. Pisces, balsamic, it's dissolving what was. And Saturn is the old reality. Capricorn, by definition, in a way, is always referencing the past because it's everything that's been built up to this moment. And it's the reality we're living. The reality we're living, is a result of what came before. It's the manifestation of everything that came before. So Saturn and Capricorn, Saturn in Pisces, we can say, is dissolving all the old structures, all the old reality. Saturn and Capricorn, I should just stop here for a moment. I think I've said this in other videos. I'll just keep saying it. So I learned astrology in modern times. And when I actually started learning astrology, it was during the height of modern astrology. And in modern astrology, we have what is sometimes referred to as the alphabet approach to learning or to working with the archetypes. And what that means is planet equals sign equals house. So on the natural wheel, we have the signs that go around the natural wheel in a certain order. And then for every sign, there's a planet that's associated with it. And so that planet, so for example, Mars is associated with Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. Venus is associated with Taurus, the second sign of the zodiac. Mercury is associated with Gemini, the third sign of the zodiac. And so we say planet equals sign. And then Aries on the natural wheel, that's the first sign, so that's the first house. So we say planet equals sign equals house. And from a modern perspective, these archetypes are all interchangeable. We can learn about Mars from learning about Aries. We can learn about Aries by learning about Mars, etc. And so in the case of Capricorn, Saturn naturally rules Capricorn. Capricorn aligns with the 10th house. So there's kind of like a Saturn equals Capricorn equals 10th house. And so you just that's all one archetype. It's all fused into one archetype in modern astrology in a way. In traditional astrology, that's not so. Even though they have sign rulerships, planets that rule signs, they see the planets as distinct archetypes from the signs. The signs are their own distinct archetype, and the houses are their own distinct archetype. So they're very different systems. I don't think it makes sense to talk about which one's better or worse or right or wrong. I think that so long as each system is integral in itself, then that's perfectly fine. I personally like working with the modern astrology approach. I find that I can find nuances of meaning that I might otherwise not have found, although I can't say that for certain because I haven't actually studied traditional astrology. But just to say up front, that is a distinction. So when I say something like we can talk about Saturn and Capricorn and what in the same breath, I'm talking as a modern astrologer, not as a traditional astrologer. So anyway, we have this Piscean energy. We have Saturn in this Piscean energy. So this idea of Saturn, Capricorn, talking about reality, and reality, in a sense, always referencing the past. It's what's built up from the past. So to the extent that the reality we're living is out of alignment with love, which is Pisces' unconditional highest love, that's dissolving. And it's making way for a new reality to come into being. And we can start dreaming that new reality, Pisces dream. So we can start structuring that new reality through our dreams, you could say. I heard that today, this idea of structuring our dreams on a podcast on the Astrology Hub or something like that. If I can find it, I'll link to it so people can see it. I thought that was a beautiful way of thinking about things, structuring our dreams. So anyway, Saturn in Pisces, that's part of perhaps the energy of these times, is learning to structure our dreams, so that this is preparation for when the next cycle of manifestation begins, when Saturn enters into Aries. So anyway, this idea of our past boundaries, our past structures dissolving, and that making room for new structures to arise. And Pluto in this last phase of Capricorn, this last balsamic-y phase of Capricorn, what Pluto's been doing as it's gone through Capricorn is it's been dredging up all the old structures that need to be exposed so that they can be, now Saturn can do the work of dissolving them now that they're out in the open and we can see them. And now as Pluto moves through this balsamic phase, it's giving information to Saturn, you could say, so Saturn can do this work of dissolving. And Pluto can start stepping into this new age, Aquarius, this new reality, Aquarius, having gone through and seen what wasn't working. And so now it can evolve these structures, Pluto evolution, as it steps into this new realm, and we can start experimenting and figuring out what are the new structures going to be. So we'll have that going on, that idea of experimentation with new structures. At the same time, Saturn's in Pisces, and Saturn, at least at the beginning of this, Saturn will be in Pisces, I think, for 2.5 more years. So during the first part of that, there'll be this dissolving of old structures, and at the same time structuring the new dream, as Pluto is going in and getting its feet wet in the new realm and starting to get an understanding of what this new reality is. And starting to evolve that. I hope that made sense. Anyway, so the experience that I had was that I was energetically, in a way, I was given a gift, and the gift was something that I could wrap around me. And when I wrapped it around me, it was like I understood boundaries for the first time. I understood that I had boundaries. And what allowed me to experience that for the first time wasn't it wasn't the gift that I wrapped around me, but it was given to me in love. Like when I wrapped it around me, what I was experiencing was the love that was given to me, not this specific gift, but the love that was given to me. And so what allowed me to connect with my own boundaries was that I was given this, it's not even that the gift itself was love, but I was given something that was given to me in love. And so every time I felt that around me, and every time I tuned into that, I tuned into the love that was given to me. I don't know how to explain it any better than that. And so that was revelatory for me. I just never really had a good sense of boundary, or good, healthy experience of boundaries, or a holding of boundaries. And one of the things that I realized is I've been paying attention to things that really aren't my concern. And I've been doing that out of a sense of survival. But as I tuned into this thing that I was given, that I was wrapping around me, I realized I didn't need to tune into those. what came to mind was a lot of professional athletes. They talk about staying in your lane and knowing your lane, and that's, I think, one of the teachings and lessons and learnings of the athlete is learning your lane. In team sports, you have to know what your position is, and you have to know how to do that, and you have to know that your job isn't to do this other thing. At the same time, you have to know how to step into another position if somebody else is pulled out or something like that. Anyway, I think sports, there's a lot of wonderful teachings and learnings and lessons there. And I think there's a tendency, I believe, in the spiritual realm to kind of diminish or dismiss the path of the athlete. And I think there's a lot that can be learned there. And one of those things is knowing your lane. And so that's really when that idea of knowing your lanes, that's about boundaries. And so what is our work and what are we here to do? And if we can step into that and do that and not try to do the work that we think we should be doing or somebody else says we should be doing, and we can just do the work that we're here to do, then that's how, and if we're all doing that, that's how we can create this better world that we all want, and experience better worlds for ourselves as we do that. So that was an insight that I had from this gift. And one of the things that I want to talk about here in terms of the zodiac wheel is Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, having to do with boundaries and reality and mastery. We're mastering reality in Capricorn. One of the things that, Capricorn is naturally opposed to Cancer. And Cancer is a water sign. Capricorn is an earth sign. So Capricorn has to do with molding reality, and Cancer has to do with the emotional reality and sort of swimming in the waters of emotion, I suppose you could say. Cancer is the first earth sign. Pisces is the third earth sign. And Cancer and Capricorn opposed. Cancer is an earth sign, but by the way, it's a seagoat, and so it has a tail in the water. So it's not completely earthy, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, there's a book. It's called The Continuum Concept, and it's written by Jean Liedloff. And it's a book. She went to the Amazon and lived with a tribe there for off and on. She kind of traveled back and forth to this tribe over many years and accumulatively spent many years living with them, or several years living with them. And she observed their child rearing practices. And she was kind of, when she was visiting there, she was sort of part of the tribe. She was a member of the tribe in a way. I don't know if officially she was a member of the tribe, but she participated in the tribe. She had friends there, and people befriended her. So it wasn't just as an external observer that she was seeing this, but she was participating in the tribe. So she wrote a book about her observations about their child rearing practices. And one of the things that they do, when the baby is born, that baby is held in the mother's arms like for a really long time, not just a day, not just a few hours, not just a day or a few days, like weeks and months. And the mother continues to participate in her daily activities and tribes and socializing and all of that. And the entire time she has a baby in her arms. And this goes on, like I said, for weeks and months. And then when there's a point where it's no longer just the mother who's holding the baby, but somebody in the tribe is holding the baby. And so for many months, I think it's at least 9 months, it might be 6 to 9, or it might even be a little more than 9, but it's a really long time. Somebody is holding that baby. That baby is always in somebody's arms, literally all the time. And so Liedloff talks about, so Cancer represents the womb, and it represents the mother and the child. And Liedloff, interestingly, talks about the arms as the external womb, the arms that the mother that are holding the baby, the mother's arms that are holding the baby, that's the external womb. And she makes the case that we need that. We're not ready to we come out of the internal womb. We still need a womb of protection until we grow strong enough to be able to venture out on our own. And there'll be a point during this time when the baby's being held that it will naturally start to step out and want to explore, and it's allowed to do that. So it happens on when the baby's ready. And you could say that being held in the arms like this external womb, that is the nourishment. That is a part of the nourishment. It needs the mother's milk, but it also needs this external womb. We could argue that that's part of the nourishment that it needs to be able to build its strength, to be able to enter into the world. Capricorn entering into the world. And so to the extent that we don't get our fill of this in Cancer, then when we step into the world, it may seem really, extra harsh, but it doesn't necessarily need to. If we are able to get that buffer met in Cancer, then we will have that resilience when we enter into the external womb. But so anyway, this idea of boundaries. So I always would think of that. Often we think of Capricorn and Saturn as kind of harsh, like the boundaries and the limitations and the things that, keep us from doing what we want or whatever. But I never thought about them. They're actually protective, and they're nourishing and they're nurturing. So the arms of the mother are not keeping us from growing. They're helping us so that we can grow enough so that we can then step out and start to grow further. And so I don't know if that made sense, but I hope it did. But so every polarity is in relationship to one another. So Capricorn and Cancer are polarities on the natural wheel, and they work together. So we can see that in Cancer there are boundaries. We usually think of that as the shell of the crab. So Cancer is the crab, and we think about that as a shell, and how in order for the crab to grow, that shell has to molt, and then it'll grow a bigger shell. But we can also think of it as the mother and the child, and those arms being the external womb, and that's also a boundary, and it's a boundary of love and nurturance and protection, and that we need that to be able to grow so much. You didn't think about that when you think about the shell of the crab. It needs that shell for protection. So it's not. I always kind of was always thinking about it more in terms of it's limiting. I can't, it can't grow more. It needs to shed that shell and be done with it, so it can now have a new one. But it also needs that shell that at its new stage to protect it as it continues on in its life. So I just wanted to talk about that relationship between Capricorn and Cancer, and with Saturn in Pisces and Pluto in this last part of Capricorn, kind of balsamic Piscean in nature. And then that's kind of that watery realm. And this Pisces is about this unconditional love. And we can say that Cancer is then another expression of this unconditional love, in terms of the being held in the arms of the mother. The mother-child relationship is itself an expression of love. And archetypally, talking about the mother and child, we can talk about parent and child. But anyway, I think that's all I have to say. I hope something there made sense. It was making sense to me, and I wanted to share it. And then the final thing, I just wanted to give an update. I know I haven't written another article since I wrote that first one on the signs, and I still plan to write that series. One of the things that always happens to me, I've several times wanted to write an article, a series on the signs, and I've started. I haven't actually posted anything on my newsletter, but I sort of start, and then I stop, and I get stuck. And I'm realizing that part of the reason is, by definition, a series on the signs always seems to be about focusing in on one sign at a time. And I just don't think of them like that. To me, they're all, there are connections. There are like developmental unfoldings. And so I'm trying to figure out, I think that's how I want to approach this. And when I talk about the signs is as developmental unfoldings. So for example, if you're watching the video version of this, I have my cursor on Aries, and then I was going to Leo, and then I was going to Sagittarius. So this is the fire element, and you could potentially look at that as like Aries as the first stage of the fire element, or the first foundation of the fire element, and Leo as the second foundation, and Sagittarius as the third foundation. So so that's part of the reason I haven't written it. I'm still trying to figure out my way. Also, I'm realizing I bit off more than I could probably chew in that first article, and what I laid out that I might possibly do in the series, working through each sign from the stages of development, or from the 3 levels of the signs. I'm not sure that's going to work at this point. It might work later, but I don't think it'll work right now. So anyway, I am going to be doing this series. I'm just walking with exactly how I'm going to do it. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope there was something useful or helpful in here, and thank you for staying with me on my with my newsletter, and thank you for your understanding as I continue to find my way. Okay, take care. Bye.